I still remember that moment as clearly as if it happened yesterday, no matter how many times I and Apos V tried to forget. It passed like a fleeting gust of wind, yet every detail is etched into my memory forever. I pushed open his door without a sound, assuming Ethan was deep in sleep after a long, exhausting day. But instead I froze in place, heart pounding wildly, confronted by a scene I never expected. He lay there alone in his most private moment. I should have turned around immediately, slammed the door shut, and fled back to my room. But my feet felt nailed to the floor. I couldn't and Apos move. A strange feeling washed over me, a mix of fear and an inexplicable pull, holding me right there. My name is Emily. I and Apos am 56 years old now, living in a quiet little house in the suburbs of Orange County, California. On the surface, my life looked perfect. A hardworking husband named David, a cozy home with a small garden I tend myself, and Ethan, David and Apos' 25-year-old son from his previous marriage, now a university lecturer. David travels frequently for work, leaving me alone through long, empty nights. I fill the silence with cleaning, baking fragrant cookies, watering the rose bushes in the backyard. Anything to push away the loneliness. When David married me 8 years ago, I truly believed I and Apos finally found real peace. But behind the smiles and warm dinners, our marriage slowly turned cold and distant. Quick hugs, loving words over the phone. They were just enough to keep up appearances, never enough to warm my heart. I tried to drown the quiet with chores, baking, gardening, whatever it took to chase away the emptiness. When David married me 8 years ago, I thought I and Apos finally found stability. But beneath that polished surface, our marriage was frigid and rigid. Ethan was different. Tall, golden-haired, with a chiseled body sculpted by regular gym sessions. He carried that youthful rebellion David always tried to suppress. We rarely spoke beyond polite small talk. Good morning. How and Apos' work going? Nothing more. Until that fateful night, everything changed. That evening, a light rain pattered against the windows, and the house smelled softly of vanilla candles. David had just called to say his flight was delayed. He wouldn't and Apos be home until morning. I curled up on the sofa, trying to lose myself in a novel to escape the familiar ache of loneliness. Then I heard it. A soft, anguished moan drifting from Ethan and Apos' room. A chill ran down my spine. Was he hurt? My heart clenched. I pushed the door open, mind blank, and there he was. Our eyes met in that instant. No words, just heavy silence wrapping around us. I should have left right then. Instead, I stepped closer. He whispered something low and hoarse, and I couldn't and Apos resist. We crossed a line we were never meant to touch. It wasn't an Apos raw lust. It was a strange, desperate connection between two lonely souls. I saw the pain in his eyes, and maybe he saw the emptiness in mine. This is just the beginning, he murmured in my ear, his voice dark and ominous. In that moment I knew there was no going back. The boundary had shattered, and nothing would ever be the same. Before I go any further into the story, I want to take a moment to say a heartfelt thank you to everyone who in Apos' subscribed and stuck with the HLOARA channel. Your support means the world to me. It keeps me sharing these raw, honest stories. If you and Apos rewatching this video right now, please hit that like button and subscribe so you don't and Apos miss the next parts. And drop a comment below, tell me what you think. Have you ever been caught in a situation like this? I really want to hear from you. HLOARA is waiting for your messages. Now let me take you through what happened next, because that night was only the start of weeks of torment I couldn't and Apos escape. The next morning, warm sunlight poured through the windows, but inside I felt frozen. I lay in bed, sheets twisted around me, trying to convince myself it was all just a nightmare. A shameful illusion that would fade with the dawn. But no, it was real. Ethan and Apos' scent still lingered on my skin even after I and Apos scrubbed myself raw in the shower. How could I ever look him in the eye again? How could I face David when he came home tonight? I hid in my room as long as I could, but when I finally went downstairs to the kitchen, he was already there, shirtless, hair still damp from the shower, calmly eating breakfast like nothing had happened. His eyes met mine, and they weren't and Apos the eyes of a stepson anymore. They were deep, knowing, silently reminding me of everything we and Apos done. Good morning, Emily, he said softly, but there was something in his tone that made me shiver. I pretended to busy myself frying eggs, hands trembling. We barely spoke, but the air between us was so thick you could cut it with a knife. He stepped a little closer, brushing my shoulder lightly as he reached for a glass of water. The touch was faint, but it sent my heart racing. I knew I should push him away, scream that this was wrong. But my body betrayed me. It craved that warmth in a way I couldn't and oppose. Explain. I stood under the scalding shower, letting the water pound against my skin, trying to wash it all away. But the memories clung like a second skin. Ethan and Oppo's voice calling my name echoed in my head. The way he looked at me last night, power and desire all tangled together. I told myself to forget, to be strong, but deep down a part of me still ached for that feeling. Being truly seen, truly wanted, even if it was so terribly wrong. Tears threatened to spill, but I bit them back. I shut off the water, dried off quickly, threw on an oversized sweater and old jeans, pulled my hair into a loose bun. No makeup, just trying to look normal. Today would be different, I told myself. I and Oppo's make breakfast, keep busy, and when David got home, everything would go back to normal. Life would continue as if none of it had ever happened. I walked into the kitchen with that resolve. But the second I opened the door, I froze. Ethan was already at the counter, shirtless, his tan skin glowing in the morning light. He was eating cereal slowly, spoon moving deliberately, muscles flexing with each small motion. His hair was still wet, droplets sliding down his forehead and onto his shoulder. He looked young, free, but the way he looked at me held nothing innocent. His gaze locked onto mine, slow and deliberate. It traced from my face down my neck, along the curve of my sweater, then back up to my eyes with a lazy confidence that made my pulse thunder. Heat flooded my cheeks. I turned away fast, yanking open the fridge and pretending to search for something. Anything. Good morning, Emily, he said again, voice light but laced with amusement, like he knew exactly how hard I was trying to hide. I mumbled a reply, back still to him, hands shaking as I grabbed the egg carton. You look different today, he added, teasing but loaded with meaning. I slammed the fridge door harder than I meant to. Eat your breakfast, I snapped, sharper than intended, trying to reclaim some authority as the older woman in the room. He chuckled softly. The sound echoed through me, raising goosebumps. He leaned in and whispered, softer now, almost against my ear even from a distance. You Don and Oppo's have to pretend anymore. I fumbled, cracking 2 eggs into the sizzling pan, yolks breaking messily. I stared at the stove, praying he and Oppo's leave, giving me a second to breathe. But I felt him move closer. His presence hovered right behind me, warm and charged with something unsettling. No more pretending, Emily, he said, voice low and intimate. I know you liked it. The spatula slipped from my hand, clattering to the floor. My fists clenched. Stop, I begged, voice trembling. Don and Oppo's talk about it anymore. That was my mistake. I spun around to face him, determined to take control, to redraw the line we and Oppo's crossed. But when our eyes met, every ounce of resolve melted away like morning mist. There was no regret in his gaze, no shame, only a raw, burning hunger he didn't and Oppo's bother to hide. You want it again, he said, stepping closer. His hand grazed my hip, just a light brush, but it seared through me like fire. My breath caught sharply. I hated myself for the way my body leaned toward him instinctively, craving that closeness even as my mind screamed to stop. No, I whispered, but the words sounded weak, unconvincing even to me. He smiled, the slow, knowing smile of someone who in Oppo's already won. He moved in, gently pressing me back against the counter. His fingers slipped under the hem of my sweater, tracing lightly over the skin of my waist, not forceful, just teasing touches full of intent. A soft sound escaped me. My body arched toward him before I could stop it. You and Oppo's mine now, he murmured, voice thick with desire. Last night, Emily, you crossed the line. There and Oppo's no going back. I shook my head, eyes filling with tears, but when his lips met mine, every protest vanished. The kiss was demanding, possessive, stealing my breath. His hands explored with a boldness that showed how quickly he and Oppo's learned my body, even after just one night. I gave in, fingers threading through his damp hair, pulling him closer. Desperate in a way I and Appos, D never known. He lifted me onto the counter effortlessly, stepping between my legs. We kissed fiercely, breaths ragged and mingling, soft sounds of skin brushing skin filling the quiet kitchen. I and Appos, D never felt so alive, so hungry, so completely out of control. I knew how insane it was. I knew danger was just one door away. David could walk in any second. But in that moment nothing mattered except what he made me feel. Attention, desire, a vitality I and Appos, D lost long ago in my cold marriage. When we finally pulled apart, gasping, surrounded by broken eggs and scattered dishes, a chilling realization hit me. I didn't and Appos, T regret it, not even a little. And that terrified me more than anything else. I pushed him back, slid down from the counter on shaky legs. Go, I whispered, voice breaking. David and Appos, going to be home soon. Ethan watched me for a long moment, then nodded once. He turned and left the kitchen, leaving me standing there clutching my chest, trying to steady my racing heart. I stared at the mess on the floor, caught my reflection in the cabinet glass. A stranger with red-rimmed eyes, swollen lips, and an emptiness inside that nothing could fill. That was the moment I understood. The boundary was gone, and I had no idea how to rebuild it. The days that followed were pure tension. David came home, gave me a tired smile, and pulled me into a tight hug. I tried to hug him back, but every kiss felt like a stab of guilt. Ethan became a silent shadow. He and Appos, D appear when David wasn't and Appos, T looking, whispering things that kept me awake at night. You can and Appos? T forget it, can you? I hated myself for those thoughts. I was David and Appos' wife. I and Appos, D promised fidelity. Yet every time Ethan was in the house my heart twisted. We didn't and Appos, T touch much anymore, but stolen glances, accidental brushes in the kitchen, brief conversations when David was gone. They all became a dangerous habit. I tried to save my marriage. I cooked David and Appos' favorite meals, listened to him talk about work, even tried to be closer at night. But he sensed the distance. What in Appos' wrong, Emily? You seem so different. He and Appos, D ask worried. I and Appos, D force a smile and blame housework. The truth was I was drowning in an emotional storm. Every night beside my husband I and Appos, D think of Ethan, not out of lust but because of the way he listened, the way he noticed me. Things David hadn't and Appos, T given me in years. The strain lasted weeks. Ethan kept testing me with whispers and loaded looks. I knew I was playing with fire but I couldn't and Appos, T put it out. Until the final fateful night. David went out drinking with colleagues, leaving me and Ethan alone in the big house. I sat on the sofa trying to lose myself in a movie. Then he appeared in the doorway, wearing just a thin t-shirt and sweatpants. No words, he just walked over. We looked at each other, and this time neither of us held back. We held each other tightly, not out of wild passion, but because the loneliness had built up too long. That was the moment I completely surrendered to my own feelings. But then the front door creaked open. David came home early. He stood frozen in the living room doorway, staring at us together. His face drained of color, eyes wide with shock and pain. Emily? His voice cracked as if he couldn't and Appos, T believe what he was seeing. I wanted to run to him, drop to my knees and beg forgiveness, but my legs wouldn't and Appos, T move. Ethan rose quietly, his expression unreadable. David said nothing more. He turned and walked out, the door slamming behind him like thunder. I collapsed to the floor, tears streaming endlessly. Ethan stood there a moment then whispered, "This was always going to happen." He left the house shortly after, leaving me alone in the wreckage. David never came back. He sent divorce papers through a lawyer, and I lost everything. The house, my husband, and every shred of self-respect. I sit here now in an empty room, wondering how I let it go so far. Maybe loneliness blinded me. Maybe I was never truly happy in that marriage. My story ends here, but the regret never does. If you and Appos watched this far, please share in the comments. What do you think I should do now? Is there any way to salvage it? And if you love these raw, real stories, please like, share, and subscribe to HLOARA so I can keep going. Thank you so much for being here through these hard moments. I and Appos, LL see you in the next video with another emotional story. Take care.